So guys, we have a ton of new leaks regarding the iPhone 13. We have tidbits on the A15 chip and how it could be going into mass production by the end of May. We also have tidbits about the 120Hz LTPO panels that will be in the 13 Pro and Pro Max are apparently also going into mass production pretty soon. And we have some other details on the always-on display and the in-display Touch ID scanner that of course we can expect with the iPhone 13 range. So there is a lot to delve into, and so without further ado, make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumors. And with that being said, let's just tuck in. Right, so let's begin with the A15 chip. So Digitimes, who often has connections within the supply chain, tell us that apparently TSMC, Apple's long-term chip supplier, will be mass producing the A15 chip ahead of schedule at the end of May. And so this does pretty much confirm to us that we should not see any delays with the release this year, and we should see the iPhone 13s debut in September as per usual. Now, in terms of details regarding the A15 chip, well, we actually don't know much. In fact, Digitimes literally only says the A15 chip will be based on the 5nm plus process, which is to be expected because Apple has a TikTok cycle with the chip process. And so since we did see the 5nm process debut with the A14, Apple then gives us an S version of that, which of course is the 5nm plus process, and then maybe in 2022, we of course move on to the 3nm process. Now, in terms of speed improvements, McGuire Wood says we should expect a steady increase in performance as per usual. And so basically, the A15 will be slightly better than the A14, which really isn't a bad thing at all because the A14 is clearly still the champ when it comes to smartphone processors, and so Apple can just sit back and relax and improve the performance by little bits every year, but of course they would still be maintaining their lead over the competition. Though McGuire Wood says that there will be tighter security both in software and baked into the silicon, which does sound like a retaliation to the jailbreak community, because of course Apple does not like you jailbreaking your iPhone. It's clearly something they don't condone, and of course over the last few years they've been trying their best to stop jailbreaking as a whole, but nothing really has worked. And so maybe having some protocols baked into the silicon could of course finally put this whole thing to a stop. Anyways, moving on, let's delve into the LTPO panels on the iPhone 13. So you might know we are getting 120Hz at last on the iPhone 13. A lot of sources have corroborated on this, and so there is a very high chance that this does happen. And today we have information from Digitimes claiming that Samsung and LG Display are in the process of converting parts of their production capacity to produce LTPO OLED displays for the upcoming iPhone. And by the way, production should begin in the first half of 2021, and so it does seem like Apple is ahead of schedule with the iPhone 13. They've clearly prepared for the worst, and they want these iPhones out as soon as possible, which of course is absolutely great news for a lot of us thinking about upgrading this year. Now, in case you don't know, LTPO basically enables the OLED display to variably refresh from 1Hz to 120Hz, which of course allows Apple to save as much battery life as possible. And while Digitimes does mention that we could see 10 to 15% reduced power consumption with these newer displays, and so basically we can have the best of both worlds. We can have the buttery smooth 120Hz display, but of course we don't have to sacrifice on endurance, and battery life should be pretty similar to what it is right now with the iPhone 12 range. Now, the report mentions that apparently Apple is still trying to make some sort of connection with BOE, which, by the way, in case you don't know, were the guys who were supposed to make the displays for the regular iPhones last year. But because they kept failing Apple's quality control tests, they ultimately were pushed to the side, and Apple instead went to, of course, the more expensive but more reliable Samsung display and LG display. But apparently, BOE is developing an Apple dedicated section at one of their plants in China to make displays for the next iPhone. And so fingers crossed they do actually pass the exam this time, because if they do, they of course can make these displays much cheaper. And so with BOE on board, there is a very small chance we could see cheaper iPhones, primarily the regular iPhones, which could drop by around $50 or so, much like we saw with the iPhone 11. Anyways, moving on, we have two final tidbits from Maguire Woods. The first one is about the always-on display that's apparently made the cut with the iPhone 13 and could have complications very similar to what we see on watchOS. So thankfully, this won't be a basic feature. This will actually have a customizability angle to it. And so it won't just be displaying the time and notifications. You can of course assign other abilities, much like we see on the Apple Watch. Anyways, the final tidbit is about the in-display Touch ID scanner, because apparently Apple's gone ahead with an ultrasonic scanner, much like we see on Samsung's phones, purely because it is more reliable and secure than, of course, the optical scanners we see on other Android phones. I am glad to see that Apple is focusing on security, and so yes, I am absolutely buzzing to finally see the fingerprint scanner again on the iPhone. But let me know in the comments below, are you a fan of Face ID or Touch ID? And on that note, thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. For the latest Apple news and rumors, check out the video in the icon above about some dummy units of the 2021 iPad Pro. And on that note, I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya, peeps.